Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. I hope you are staying well and focused on what you can control. Happy Pride Month as well to all of us that are celebrating on our LGBTQ plus IA community. We are excited today to highlight a special holiday that many of us may not be aware of, some of us are aware of, is Juneteenth. And for that, we have a special guest from one of our corporate partners representing Sodexo, Breana Jones, who is the Vice President of Marketing and Corporate Services. Breana, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for taking time to join us today to talk about something that's very special holiday and one that's being recognized more than ever, considering I know a lot of us may have it as a day off now, when perhaps years before we did it. First, you're joining us for Cafecito con HACE. So one of our questions that we like to start off with all of our special guests is, how do you like your cafecito, your coffee, or your morning beverage of choice preference?
Have to admit, I'm not a huge coffee drinker, and when I am, I like it extremely sweet. So the funny thing is, people say I like a little coffee with my sugar and cream. So
a little coffee with my sugar and cream. I know a lot of people can attest to that. Buenos dias, good morning. We have folks that are joining us from all over. And I know we were just talking right before we jumped on. I know many of us in the US are, and I guess across the world, I was learning, experiencing a heat wave, right? So I typically have my warm cafecito. Today I made it a special iced cafecito, iced coffee, because it's a little warm today. And as Breana shared with us, how many of us like the sugar with the coffee, or add the coffee to the sugar? Sweetness, there you go. Awesome, Breana. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about a unique holiday and Juneteenth. But we want to learn about who you are. I think it's critical when we have these short conversations with our special guests. We have such a diverse audience. Those that are getting started in their careers, those that are further along, different backgrounds from across the world. And it's so critical that we get to know who our guests are so that we can connect with you, get to learn who you are. So tell us about your cultural, your professional background, and how you got to your current career.
Sure. So Breana Jones, as you mentioned, Patricia, I am Vice President of Marketing for one of our segments at Sodexo. I've been in marketing for 20 plus years. I identify as an African-American woman, but I consider myself a global citizen. So, in college, I lived 2 years in our Latin American themed dorm. I've spoken 5 languages. Once upon a time, I was fluent in Spanish, but we all know if you don't use it, you lose it. So
¿Quieres practicar?
Yeah, exactly. The funny thing is, I was like, "Ooh, do I mention that? Maybe she'll ask me questions." I'm not ready to go there. But if you give me 12 hours in a Spanish-speaking country, I'm back up to speed. So, but no, that's who I am. That's what I do.
I hear you. We have to immerse yourself in the culture and it within 24 hours. And I spent some time in Italy and Spain. My Spanish was starting the different Spanish that Spaniards speak, right? And also Italian as I was there. Buenos dias a todos. I see Sally, I see Yanira, some of our team members that are joining us. How many of you, I would like to hear in the chat, are familiar with Juneteenth or just recently learned about it? We want to hear about your experience. It would be great to hear from you. And myself personally, the first time that I learned about the holiday was in my college career when I attended Indiana University Bloomington, and the Neil Marshall Center and the city of Bloomington every year had a big Juneteenth celebration. And as an undergrad, my freshman year, that was my first time learning about the holiday. And so I was just so amazed at time learning about it, but then also just learning about, the progress and what it stood for, right? So Breana, what is the importance behind Juneteenth? Why is it celebrated? And how do we ensure that it's not just a day? How do we keep this progress, the momentum moving forward?
Great questions. And I will say, I'm impressed that you learned about it as an undergrad. It for a very long time was a regional holiday. So
Mm,
people in Texas have known about it
mhm,
forever. But I grew up in the Southeast and I've lived all over the country, and I didn't learn about it until I was in undergrad also. So again, it's not something that we within the Black community have been
mm,
celebrating far and wide either. It's been very much regional. The reason why it's important is it's called, some call it Emancipation Day, because
mhm,
most of us, or at least they used to teach in schools, that the Emancipation Proclamation was signed January 1st, 1863, by Abraham Lincoln, freeing slaves. However, Juneteenth celebrates June 19th, 1865, when the final enclave of slaves were freed in Texas. So that's 2.5 years after the official end of slavery. People were still enslaved. And so that is Emancipation Day for many African Americans. That is the day that
mhm,
they use to mark their calendar that it is Independence Day for African American
mhm.
descendants of slaves. So that's the importance of it.
Yeah,
Some things that come out of it is things that we take for granted, like family reunions and
yeah,
those celebrations. Those were brought about by those slave communities were then free to go and reunite with their family members. So we celebrate something as mundane as a family reunion now, but then there was historical significance. And I think what's really now I do believe that a lot of the interest is driven by the fact that it is the latest national holiday and absolutely everyone appreciates a day off. Um, but people have asked me recently, how do we protect it? And I
mm,
tell people, honestly, I think the difference between appreciation and appropriation is education. So
yeah,
Google is your friend. And I can't tell you everything that there is about Juneteenth. I can't tell you how to celebrate it, if it should be celebrated. Some people say it should be commemorated, not celebrated, because it is a somber occasion. Other people say, you know, let's eat, drink, be happy, and celebrate what we've gotten. So it's really a personalized decision. But I think what's
that's a great
important
point.
is not necessarily to commercialize it such that it just becomes another day off that we have no idea why it's on the calendars or what it's supposed to signify, but really appreciating the historical context behind it and then what that means for us moving forward.
Yeah, wonderful context. You're seeing from some of the comments, some folks recently, as in 2, 3 years ago, and a lot of folks in undergrad, right? And some were saying, like Edwin, right? Just three years ago, our company observed it, and also the PTO, right? They were talking about the holiday that that's being observed. I really love that you said, Brianna, because I think not just for this holiday, but for everything in general, it's more of an individualized thing, right? Like it's what is first of all educating ourselves about what is it, and then making the decision in terms of how is it that you prefer to celebrate or to commemorate, right? Um, because everybody we each have our own experiences, right, and our own histories with our own families and things like that. And Sodexo, right, is one of our various corporate partners. Many of you who are listening in, a lot of your organizations are commemorating the holiday with the day off. Hopefully there's some education and awareness that's going on. Maybe you guys are joining in to use this as that opportunity. And so Sodexo's been a partner with ASE in not only recruiting through ASE, also ensuring that many of the Sodexo employees are participating through our leadership training programs. We work with Sol, who is the Latino BRG ERG that's there, so shout out to them, and the DEI leaders with Tony and Gloria that support us throughout the year. Can you tell us what specifically with Juneteenth, what is Sodexo doing, and how are you all acknowledging, and any tips for those that perhaps are not, right? Like maybe because we have ERG leaders that are listening, we have DEI leaders that are tuning in. And I think that would be great to hear as well.
Sure. So internally, because of the nature of our business, we are expressing it both internally and externally. So
Mm-hmm.
internally, yes, it has been given as a floating holiday for PTO. So there will be some who will be taking advantage of that day to, again, maybe unite with family, friends, celebrate, commemorate, however you choose to spend that day. What we've also done is we've partnered with some other organizations to form a consortium.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a theme this year around freedom, because that is
Mm.
really what Juneteenth is about. It's about freedom. And freedom is also one of those very individualized, personalized things. Is it freedom from financial burdens? Is it freedom from
Mm.
physical issues? And so what we've done is we've partnered, as I said, with 7, 8 other organizations, and with their EBRGs, we are planning a day of activities. So whether you are in the East Coast, West Coast, middle of the country, we've got activities throughout the day in which you can participate that are focused around whether it's freedom from a financial,
Mm.
or financial, physical, mental, spiritual standpoint. And it's also an opportunity for us to come together as a community, which again is the basis of Juneteenth as well. So that's what we're doing internally here at Sodexo.
Mm.
Externally, it's important because a lot of our partners, our clients, are also in that space where they want to be celebratory, but they may not know how. So, what we've
Mm.
done is we've encouraged them to educate as well. So, if you are changing a menu, if you are putting up signage, make sure that you include the historical facts or context so that people understand it's not just about the food that you're serving, but even if there is something, there's historical context behind maybe what that recipe was or why it's important or how you can take it, such that again it goes back to being respectful in your appreciation.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. I love the freedom and how you all spin that to be able to connect to everybody, right? Because I think all of the aspects that you mentioned to be able to make that connection with various communities. Because I always love to say, we're a Latino serving organization. We're not Latino exclusive, and we invite everybody to be part of our conversations, our events, and looking at unique ways, such as the one that you just mentioned, is how do we include everybody to be part of these critical conversations. Those of you tuning in would love to learn how is your company, whether internally or externally, is participating. And if not, we want to hear your commitment to go back and to advocate for saying, hey, this is what I learned today. These are some great things that Sodexo, some other companies are doing that I recommend, because it takes one person, right, to be able to advocate and to create change. We have a few minutes for questions. We want to hear from you all if there's any questions regarding the holiday or even regarding Sodexo specifically. As we get those questions going, any tips for folks that are going to go back and advocate for this holiday? Breana, what would you say? What would you say? What tips would you recommend for folks to do?
Again, I think it is really understanding it, and it starts with it's not a new holiday, but it's a new holiday if we're being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, again, even something as simple as Googling and
Yeah.
understanding again the context or talking to friends. I think you'd be surprised that it's one of those that maybe people have heard about. Is it really regional? How they've been participating? I know personally, I am celebrating it through financial freedom this year. That's a big focus for us. So there's an accounts that you can set up for children that we will be contributing, my family and I, into making sure that African American children have that educational freedom that comes along with fiscal responsibility. And so we will be really emphasizing that with our own children and their friends. I know other people who will be having parties and celebrating with traditional, recipes. And so, again, I think it's totally up to how you want to do it, but I would stress doing the information gathering piece first.
The education, information, awareness is critical, right? We can't have that without the celebratory, the foods. We have our other partners here, US Foods, talking about they're doing week-long celebrations all week. And is it safe to say, I think in my opinion or observation, many of our observations was really this holiday came to light considering what's happened the last 2 years, right? And with the Black Lives Matter movement, with the murder, right, of George Floyd, I think that really kind of catapulted this becoming more, or folks becoming more aware of this. Would you agree with that, or what are your thoughts?
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
I think it's a valuable holiday, but do I think that it was elevated because of
Yeah.
social and civic times,
Yeah.
absolutely, because the
Yeah.
last previous federal holiday prior to this was, Martin Luther King's birthday.
Right.
So we're seeing, which again was also done during turbulent times. And
Yeah.
so, do I think there are political reasons behind it? Absolutely. But I will take any opportunity for people to understand that African American history is American history. And so,
It
again,
is.
I think if you're really getting into the tenets and the foundation of the holiday, it is about freedom. And
Mhm.
that's something that all of us can understand, whether it's freedom from, it's June, so it's Pride Month. It's freedom to love. Just last week or even yesterday, I believe, was Loving Day. So who do you love?
Yeah.
Whether it's interracial, whether it's LGBTQIA, whether it's anything. It's
Yeah.
for us to embrace all of it.
Yeah, and we have a comment from Brandon on this section saying recommendation emphasize the historical relevance is important as many people are unaware of its background or reasoning, right? And then giving back to the community and again educating. So a lot of great tips, a lot of great insight. Great to hear a lot of folks have recently become aware or are now educating themselves and educating and creating awareness within their own companies and organizations. We are celebrating freedom for all, right? And I love that comment, that statement, and the work that's being done because it's critical that we make sure we're being creating that awareness, but also making sure that everyone is included in that awareness because it's going to take all of us to be able to create progress and keep the momentum going because I think that's the key thing. That's been one of my with the work that we're doing at HACE with our partners at Sodexo is making sure that we're keeping the momentum going, and it's going to take collaborations and conversations such as these. And so as we get ready to wrap up, I want to ask Breana, what are you most hopeful for or a positive story that gives you hope?
Well, I'm a sports fan, so I'm kind of hopeful that the Warriors will pull through in Game 6. But in bigger context, I'm hopeful that, I know that things can be bleak, and it seems like all we're hearing about are negative stories, and there's a lot going on, and we all know that there are situations that still need to be rectified and remedied. But I think back to the historical context, again, 1865, there was a civil war that had just ended. People who had previously supposed to have been freed were just gaining that freedom, and rather than looking back, they were looking forward. And so I want to continue to take that with me and hope that those who've heard this will continue to take that message. And I'm hopeful that we'll all look to build upon what's been in the past and maybe what's happened to us recently and the things that have in the last 2 years come about to really affect some change moving forward.
Rather than looking back, looking forward. And I think to add to that, I think that's all beautiful is what you've already said is what does freedom look like for you and what is going to be your focus, right? And how are you leveraging organizations and resources, whether it's the mental health freedom, the financial freedom, and so many aspects, ensuring that you're taking care of self first and foremost, because you're right, there's so much negative that's out there right now. Thank you so much, Breana, for your time, your contributions, your insight. I hope you all are having a great day and celebrating Juneteenth throughout, but celebrating freedom throughout the year. Mil gracias, Breana. A big
Thank you
hug.
for having me.
Thank you for everyone for joining us. Hasta la próxima. Until next time, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.